We have, in our time here, had the pleasure of hearing from Buzz Aldrin, who left his footprints upon the moon, and this gives us an opportunity to reflect, I think, on how we understand the story of humanity's journey from our first upright steps on the plains of Africa millions of years ago to those historic moments on the moon. And it gives us a chance as well to reflect on how we understand our journey from hurling spears thousands of years ago to launching satellites several decades ago. We tend to use narratives of progress. We grow ever more technical, our reach grows greater, we travel further, our bangs get bigger, and all of this is inherently good. That's the typical framework that we use. And it's tempting to frame the 100-Year Starship within that saga of human biological, social, and technological evolution. And it's tempting in this way to just frame it as the next logical step in a great tradition of human exploration. And indeed, space exploration is frequently justified as an extension of the human desire to explore, or as a continuation of the human colonizations of Earth. Now, as an anthropologist, I don't buy it, bluntly. We can simply extend those narratives to the point where we are viewing our home solar system in the rearview mirror. We can just continue using stories that we know, but I think we need to do something different, and I think we need to do something better. And I'm just going to take a quick step backwards to show you what I mean. You may know that the original 100-Year Starship competition was started in 2011 by leaders in two American agencies, DARPA and NASA. And as the story goes, they wanted to do something to kickstart interstellar flight. But to make it clear that this was a project beyond the remit of the American government, and so they launched a competition. And the team which put together the best proposal for creating an organization to foster the development of interstellar flight would win seed funding. And indeed, Mae Jemison's team won. And so here we are today under this new vision for 100 YSS. But I want to step back into the initial stages of that competition because I think there's something to be learned here, and it wasn't so very long ago. The original call for proposals explicitly suggested that interstellar flight was a project for the few, a project for private patronage, not governments. It also explicitly referenced an earlier history of exploration and colonization. Here is a blurry photo of a poster from that initial conference. So I walked in and my jaw dropped. I was expecting it, but not quite this much. So a list of names, John Harrison, Ferdinand Magellan, Roald Amundsen, Sir Francis Drake, and citing a history of patronage and persistence. And along those lines, we do frequently hear space exploration explained in reference to Columbus, Magellan, Lewis and Clark, etc. Now, some of those references are deeply, deeply problematic because the history as we know it now is fraught, to put it mildly. It involves genocide, slavery, piracy, and a whole bunch of things that I think most of us would rather not see in humanity's future in space. I could go on at length. I don't think it's necessary for this audience. So this is, of course, not the story that 100 YSS today stands for. But again, this is only a couple of years ago, a different framing. But this discourse behind my head is very much alive and well and probably about to be published in a large audience. Can I put a great big X through that poster for the purposes of this photograph, please? And for the next one as well. Because as my colleague John McKnight noted, another standard narrative framing human expansion into space is essentially the American idea of manifest destiny into space, the notion that just as settlers conquered a continent, so can and should they expand into the frontiers of space. That is also deeply problematic for a whole long list of reasons, which, again, we don't have any time to go into today. But so rather than providing detailed critiques, I just want to propose something else. Can we sweep aside these old stories of space? Can we not mention Columbus? I know Magellan's big anniversary is coming up, but could we just kind of reflect on the fact that most of his crew members never made it home when he was dismembered in the Philippines, and little details like that, and maybe not use that as our model? Could we instead? I mean, the reality, of course, is that the only thing that unseats a powerful old story is a powerful new one. So we have our work cut out for us in terms of what we need to write. But can we write something as well that isn't coming from a place of fear about Earth's eventual demise? I understand that we do have existential risks on this planet. I don't think it's our best motivation for going to space. So, something else I would like to see is a narrative that emphasizes all the ways in which space exploration constitutes a radical break from our home world and all that humans have ever been. It isn't the next logical step in many ways. It's a profoundly illogical step. It's still a very cool step, but we need a different kind of story, I think, here. So here's what I would just like to leave you with, is the thought that we need a new narrative of space that keeps all of these differences in the foreground to underpin the science and the technology that 100 YSS will foster. We need a story that's truthful, it's inclusive, humble in the face of the unknown, and there's a lot of that here. And we also need to recognize that this constitutes an opportunity for a global conversation that transcends nationalisms and history, that actually helps to heal these very painful histories of the last several centuries, and that could, in that way, actually be a positive force for humanity's future.